Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on the All Hazards Incident Management Team Association Qualification System. My name is Angela Koppel. I'm the EMAC Program Director at the National Emergency Management Association. I'm now going to turn the webinar over to Bill Easterling with the All Hazards Incident Management Team Association. Bill?
Hello, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Bill Easterling. I'm with Genesee Fire in Colorado. And I have about 15 years or a little more experience with the incident management teams. I am one of the co-founders of the All Hazard Incident Management Teams Association and a current board member, and I'm the board liaison to the Interstate Qualification System Committee. We have 3 other people that are joining us today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Bill Wallis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you're at. I'm one of the co-leads of the Qualification System Committee for the All Hazards group. I spent a majority of my career as a federal wildland fireman. Spent about 30-some years working with incident management teams. In the last 15 years now, I've been a coordinator and incident commander for a Type 3 All Hazards Incident Management Team in Colorado, and we've been doing deployments, at least a couple, through EMAC for flood responses around the country. So that's all I have.
Okay. Geoff Wilford, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Certainly, Bill, thank you. As you said, my name is Geoff Wilford. I come from a background of 31 years in the county fire service, retiring as a fire chief. I represented the Fire Scope, the originators of the Incident Command system, when I sat on the National Wildfire Coordinating Group's training working team, which is a lot of words just stating that that's the originators of the qualification system that most of the systems are patterned around now. Also have about 20 years on national incident management teams, including things like the shuttle response, several hurricanes, and floods. And then I spent about 7 years under subcontract working for the National Integration Center, working on doctrine and guidelines for a lot of the what people call the 508s, 509s, which are the resource typing initiatives, and then some of the doctrine that that you see. And I'm pleased to be here, and I thank you for your time. Bill?
Okay, and also another committee member joining us is Tony Doty. Tony, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Bill. As Bill said, my name is Tony Doty. I have retired from the Department of the Interior's Office of Emergency Management, where they hired me from my fire job at Alaska Fire Service to run the incident management program for the entire department. I came with that background of wildland fire, but I launched off into other aspects of incident management pretty early on in my career, doing law enforcement, search and rescue, flood, oil spill, a lot of very strange things in strange places, including radiological incident and some other things. I am still an incident management practitioner. I'm a Type 1 incident commander and assistant area commander logistics, and I just found out I'm going to be once again the deputy incident commander for the Alaska Type 1 incident management team. Like Geoff, I came from the IMWG, the incident management work group that FEMA used to try to do to manage this same effort that we are attempting to do, and maybe we'll get done with that. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, today we have 3 objectives. We want to familiarize you with the All Hazards Incident Management Team Association and its current purpose and focus. We want to discuss the need and for the Interstate Incident Management Team Qualification System and how it enhances incident management. And then we're going to review the three components of the system itself, the IIMTQS. All right, the All Hazards Incident Management Team was founded in 2010 with the purpose to enhance the training, the capabilities, and the standardization of all hazards incident management teams across the country. It was started as a grassroots organization. Its membership is comprised of professional incident management practitioners representing multiple disciplines, law enforcement, fire, public health, public works, and from all federal, state, and local agencies. The association, in its just 5 short years of existence, has grown to over 600 members that come from all 50 states and from 2 foreign countries. Australia and Canada are both very active in the association. The current focus of the association is to address the critical need for standardizing qualifications for incident management teams across the country. When you order an apple, you want a box of apples. You don't want a box of lemons. So that's what we're trying to solve. Some people have asked, you know, who gives us the right to set national standards? Well, I think incident management, or we take this, and we're not trying to be flippant, but who else would have the knowledge and experience and expertise to write standards for IMTs other than IMT practitioners? Just like any other profession, law enforcement, structural firefighters, doctors, lawyers, CPAs, it's the practitioners that actually write the standards that are adopted by states for certifying these professions. In late 2012, the association was invited to have a representative on the EMAC advisory board. Out of that participation, we were asked to prepare a mission-ready package for a Type 3 all-hazard IMT. As you see, this is the front page of that mission-ready package, and it's on the emacweb.org website. You go to the Resources tab, then Deployable Resources, and then Incident Management. Without going into a lot of details, the Mission Ready Package, or MRP, gives an overview of the recommended team personnel, the roles and responsibilities, plus a lot of additional information such as cost, activation procedures, support requirements, options in ordering a team, and so forth. And I would like to point out that after we published this on the EMAC website, the National Wildland Coordinating Group also adopted this mission-ready package for a Type 3 team. There's one very important question that the mission-ready package does not answer, and that is the incident management team qualified and able to perform the job you need? So also in 2012, you heard Tony and Geoff refer to the Incident Management Working Group. All that work was abandoned in late 2012, and at that time the association realized that there wasn't going to be anything forthcoming from FEMA. And so we made the decision that we needed to move forward and develop a standard qualification system for the country. So Geoff's going to talk about that, and I'm going to turn it over to Geoff.
All right, thanks, Bill. As he said, in about 2013, it became apparent that the progress that we were making on the All Hazards Incident Management Team Qualifications program was not going to proceed as rapidly as the almost 100 Type 3 teams needed it to progress. So, like he stated, the association kind of took the charge. In order to do this, and to do this in a professional manner, we adopted pretty much the same kind of a standard that other guidelines and standard setting bodies used. We developed a list of 18 subject matter experts and tried to make sure that the representation was fairly broad. So using the example of like NEMA itself, the National Fire Protection Agency, the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, and the FEMA Incident Management Working Group that was currently in progress, we kind of assembled those 18. They are, if you're interested in seeing who they represent, are available under the AHIMT.org website under the tab Who We Are, and then go down to Committees. I will say that the representatives do include the NWCG, or the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, the USFA, United States Fire Administration, the Emergency Management Institute, or EMI, the Department of Interior, U.S. Forest Service, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and others. So we've tried to make sure that it was well-rounded as far as the representation, because we understand that these standards and guidelines would affect nationally all of the disciplines. So of course you have to ask, why do we need those standards? The nice thing about talking to this audience is, as emergency management professionals and practitioners, you know that having incident management teams really enhances the safety of the public and responders, and it really maximizes the use of the resources. Oftentimes we see where incident management is running a little bit behind or lagging on an incident, that resources will show up and they wind up in staging for long periods of time, and they're not being applied to where the critical need is. And also there's increased fiscal management of incidents, because as you get that unified ordering point and that common method of ordering, you understand that you're not going to wind up with maybe somebody in operations ordering a resource and somebody in logistics ordering the same resource, and somebody in plans hearing that somebody needs a resource, and all of them order that same resource, and so you wind up with 3 of them. So you do get that increased fiscal management, because there is a way to bring finance into the planning process. So I think everybody understands the need for consistency. We know, and just from being practitioners that run around the country working with other incident management teams, we know that there still is a lack of consistency, and particularly when it comes to the qualifications and what those standards are. So in developing a national qualification system, which is very similar to a lot of the other standard setting bodies, is we set out what is going to be an established minimum standard, and then we allow or enable each incident management team then to meet those minimum standards. That is critical, particularly for you folks, because that allows you to match the resource that's being requested to the actual need. You don't look for one particular, say a dozer for helping with the floods down here in Louisiana, only to find out that you're getting something entirely different like a snowplow that won't work. So it allows you to get that same match like we have in resources with the resource typing. We can do that to make sure that when you ask for a planning section chief, the person that shows up is actually going to be able to do the job for you. And that's of significant value, because it really benefits you as emergency managers in being the most cost-effective and efficient in the use of resources in your particular area. EMAC itself really benefits from a national standard, because regardless of the jurisdictional boundaries or regardless of the entity requesting, there is that commonality, and so there is that one-for-one match. So why the instance of the IIMTQS, it does enhance the mobilization through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, and I believe Bill will take over from here and kind of explain the rest of that.
So my job is to explain what this incident management qualification system is made of. It has 3 primary components. in our approach in this was to build a total system, you know, that first of all contains instructions to manage a program in the guide, and then the position descriptions and task books are portions or components of the overall system. The components allow those states that adopt everything to train and qualify individuals who will participate on the teams. As the guys have already said, currently there really is no nationally recognized system for all hazard teams. A system that is nationally recognized is the National Wildfire Coordinating Group system, qualification system, better known as the 310-1. But it's focused primarily on wildfires, and so has some limitations when we start dealing with all hazard incidents. So no single component of this system should exist alone, but rather as an entire system where the task books, where the administration of the task books and the relationship of the task books to training and other qualification system is clear. The system also provides a minimum set of standards to the states that are encouraged to adopt for their incident management teams. And the intent is for consistency of IMT personnel across the country, particularly when used in interstate deployments. You know, if you look around the country, people would say, well, there are other people doing similar things out there. For instance, FEMA, you know, they have provided some position-specific training, but there really is no linkage to a standardized national position description that says, if I want to be a plans chief, that I will have to take certain specific classes in order to accomplish that. And so the big problem that we've seen with a lot of these various programs around is that there are bits and pieces, but there's no overall system that connects it all. And that's why we wanted to put the three components together as an overall system. So the guide, first of all, I wanted to note on this slide that we use the word adopting entity on this slide because we wrote the guide to cover states, tribes, and territories. But given that, you know, our primary focus is the states who may host a serious incident and will request help from other states. The guide details the processes, organizational roles and responsibilities, and other important aspects, both of administrative and operational, of developing and maintaining an effective qualification system. It provides minimum standards for personnel who participate on IMTs, either as a single resource or as deployed with a team. States may increase these standards for people within their jurisdiction, but must realize that other states may maintain those levels at a minimum. The guide also has a pathway for states to guide individuals completely through a qualification process. So you can build a system in your state to do that. The instructions are helpful in getting that done. The guide also describes attributes for exercises and planned events that can be used toward gaining qualification. So you don't have to get everything done on incidents, which has been a big problem with many people around the country who just don't have that much access to active incidents to gain the experience they need to get qualified. The guide also has instructions to implement a qualifications review committee at a state level or some other level that a state would desire that would review and approve applications for various ICS positions. One thing the system also recognizes is a need to be sort of interoperable, where individuals desiring to contribute to IMTs may have a diversity of applicable training and experience from their discipline-specific background. A lot of times this is really people who are coming out of the military. The guide describes a process for determining equivalent training and how previous experiences may count toward qualification. We call this recognized prior learning. And we'd like to thank Ashley Davis from the state of Florida for allowing us to kind of plagiarize some of the stuff they've done in Florida in building the template. So position descriptions are a part of the component then. We've built this system as a performance-based system that requires individuals to perform specific tasks identified in task books for an individual to become qualified. Our committee has tried to minimize the number of required training sessions, believing that experiential training is the best way to learn a position. Having said that, many classes are available to help a trainee prepare in advance of acting in a training role. Thus, we have recommended many of the FEMA position-specific classes. We realize, though, that a number of classes can add up and become expensive, and so you know, there's a limit to how many of these classes we have put in as required training. The other thing is that some states may actually decide to require additional courses over what our minimum standard is, and that's okay as long as they realize that other states may not. Some of the positions in our system will require that an individual have skills and abilities to perform a position that is subordinate to a position for which the trainee desires to accomplish. What I mean by that, for those of you that are familiar with the ICS system, if you want to be a plans chief, before you can get there, you may need to learn how to be a resource unit leader and a situation unit leader. And so we have provisions in the position descriptions to provide you know, access to get that training and qualification. The other thing that we've done in the position descriptions is to build fitness requirements. Again, for those of you who are familiar with the NWCG system, they have fitness requirements. Our all-hazard requirements are slightly different, and as a result, we've had to describe them a little bit differently. But again, it's all going to fall back to the states who adopt this system to build their actual fitness standards around the definitions that we've provided. So position task books are the kind of the rock that holds this whole system together. We tried to use national best practices of performance-based experiential learning system as the tools to gain qualification. Position task books provide metrics and document a trainee's progress and mastery of the knowledge and skills and abilities to attain qualification. Trainees are issued task books by his or her agency supervisor after ensuring that prerequisites have been met. Trainees participate on incidents or planned events and are monitored by qualified evaluators. The evaluators ensure that the trainee has the skill and ability to accomplish the tasks provided in the task book. The evaluator confirms that the tasks are completed and ultimately provides a final evaluation and recommendation that the trainee is qualified. Kind of as a closing thing from my perspective is the fact that this whole system has to be a living system where there will be changes and updates to all three of the components as we move through time and discover new best practices and things like that. And some examples that I can tell you that we're working on right now. You know, one thing that if a lot of you have read the position descriptions that we have out now, one thing that we, as well as the NWCG, realized is that there is not an actual definition of what the position is. sort of a strange thing for us to have a description without a definition of the roles and responsibilities of that particular position. So we're gonna go back and in coordination with NWCG come up with a working definition of each of the positions. This summer we're also working on updating and revising the positions and descriptions and task books that are currently published that we published last January, or let's see, no, last summer, I guess. Some of those need some work to be updated. Better integration of task books between All Hazard World and Wildfire. We've been working very closely with the NWCG to make that more seamless. It has been an issue because it seems like we're going down two different paths. And the final thing is the task books are going to have probably have expanded instructions and possibly new training requirements for evaluators. Of course, any of these kinds of changes that we make will be put out for comment nationally and adjudicated before we implement them. So I'm going to turn it back to Bill now and let him close out for us.
Thanks, Bill, Jeff. You know, in closing, I'd like to just point out that this system, it's available on our website. You see that up in the upper right-hand corner of the slide, or down at the bottom for more information. But all of these documents are available. They are free of charge, no cost. They're put out there for the public good. Our subject matter experts, these 18 hardworking people on our committee, have donated their time and expertise because they see the void across the country and how badly this national qualification standards are needed. For an example, I was contacted by someone from a state about a year ago, and it's probably good I don't remember their name, but they had been working on developing a qualification system for their state and had just come across ours. And they were a little miffed because they put all this work when here it was turnkey for them, and actually they said it was better than what they were coming up with. So the success of the IIMTQS is dependent upon each of your individual states adopting it and implementing it so that this will become the national standards and system for people to get qualified, so we make better teams when we're going across state lines. We know what we're getting. So we're ready to take any questions. Angela?
All right, our first question is, are the position descriptions, tasks books, and qualification system guides available online?
Yes, yes they are at ahimta.org, and I believe, I don't have the website up, on the home page there's some tabs to public documents, but I believe the actual guide is on the front page where you can download it in a PDF form.
Bill, I might add, you know, to answer part of that question is we currently have finalized position descriptions and working on the final version of task books for the unit leader positions for a majority of the unit leader positions. Right now, the things that are online are position descriptions and task books for the command and general staff positions at the Type 3 level.
Right. Yeah, Bill, you're absolutely right. We're going to be putting those out for comment in the next several weeks, and then all those comments will be adjudicated, and then it will be hopefully approved and adopted by the association board and published for use by the general public.
Well, you just answered one of the questions that came in, which was about the status of the unit leader task books. So I'm going to follow that question up. When you send those out for comment, are those publicly posted on the website so they can go there to be able to get their comments put in?
Yes, it's published on the website. It has links so you can go in and then there's links to comment pages where you go in and you fill in a form, your exact comments to the specific page and line number.
Okay, great. Our next question is, what other states are using the IMTQS?
All right, right now there are 4 states, Montana, Colorado, Utah, and Louisiana is just implementing the program. I don't have any official word, but we hear there are about 8 to 10 others that are actually looking at it. A couple of states I understand are very close. They've actually asked for a copy where it was not a PDF so they could add their state seal to the cover of the guide. So right now I can only vouch for 4.
Okay. If a state EMAC coordinator publishes a Type 3 all hazards team mission ready package through the standard, is AHIMTA the certifying authority that they would meet the standard at the local level, or is it the state taking on that responsibility liability if the state EMAC coordinator actually publishes that mission ready package? A complex question.
Okay.
Hey, Bill,
You want to hit this one? Good.
The answer to that really is that the states have to manage the program themselves, so that what we would hope is that an adopting state would certify those individuals meeting that standard. Our association is probably not going to get involved in actual credentialing and qualifying individuals. It would have to be left up to the states to do that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does really well. Our next question, are the fitness or physical requirements or the ability to do the job part of the standards?
Yes. They're in the position description package at the bottom of each position description and will relate back to the definitions in the guide.
Okay, our next question, what qualifications are required to sign off on the task book entries?
Geoff,
Geoff can take it.
Yeah.
Certainly, for a task to be signed off, you need to have an evaluator. For evaluating, you need to be in the position, qualified in the position that the trainee is currently occupying. So for instance, if you've got somebody in the planning section, say a resources unit leader, and they're attempting to be qualified, the evaluator, for everything except the final evaluation where the task book is signed off, for any other instances, the evaluator needs to be qualified either in that position or the position that supervises that particular person. So in other words, it could be another resources unit leader or a planning section chief. Then for the final evaluation, which is really where you look through and make sure that all the tasks have been signed off, and you're going to sign and say, you know what, this person has performed in front of me and has met the standard that's within the position task book, then that final evaluator needs to be qualified in the actual position that is being looked at. And the reason behind that is because there are some plans chiefs that, for instance, may not be a situation unit leader, and they may not have a really super in-depth knowledge of what the situation unit leader does. So they can, because they supervise them, they can handle and understand what that person should be doing until it gets to the final one where you're really going to say this is a standalone situation unit leader. Then they're looking at the person, the evaluator, really needs to be qualified in that particular position so they know very well exactly what the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are necessary, and they can ensure that that person actually meets the minimum standard. And that's similar to other systems that are in place that are part of a performance-based system where it's actually the performance of that particular position that really is the final test, and not just like an academic credential or so.
All right, great, thank you. Next question, which states have already adopted these standards?
Yeah, I think we've covered that, but it's Montana, Colorado, Utah, and Louisiana have all signed on the last dotted line. And like I mentioned, there are several others that are in the process of adopting.
Right, there are many standards out there regarding emergency management, NFPA 1600, etc. Does this standard mesh with the other standards?
Geoff, I'm going to hand this one to you.
I appreciate that, Bill. As far as the other standards that are being looked at, as far as through FEMA and the states, and so pretty much I would say that about 90% of all of the standards that are currently being written at the state and actually even at the federal level, they're like very close cousins or part of the family. They all come from the same generic system, so they're fairly complementary. As far as NFPA, that's a little bit off to the side, but we're going to be taking a look at that in the near future to just make sure that there are no, I'd say, stumbling blocks or anything as far as a roadblock that would prevent them from working together.
All right, when does AHIMTA meet to discuss these programs, and is there an annual conference or meeting, and who can join AHIMTA?
Wow, what a great question.
A three-part question, yes.
Yes, the committee, the IQS committee meets roughly monthly via conference call, and as funds become available and monies are available, we met, I believe it was the first weekend in March. These committee members give up their weekend and we fly to a central location and we sit down and we work the heck out of them for about a long 3.5 day weekend to really punch the work out. But most of it is done on an ongoing basis via email. We use a Dropbox and so forth. And now, who can join the association? Anybody that's interested in incident management and can join. And there's tabs on the website to become a member. And yes, we do have an annual conference. It was held in Denver it's the first week in December. We have 3 days of pre-conference courses, and then the conference lasts 2.5 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. It will be the first week of December. I don't have the exact dates, but in Oklahoma City this coming year. We had over 500 people attending the conference in last December here in Denver. It was a great conference, and we encourage you all to attend.
Excellent. Has there been any consideration for adding a training specialist position and trainee slots as part of the admission ready package in order to promote training and qualifying additional personnel?
I think, does somebody want to tackle this?
I can try.
Okay.
It's always been thought about and considered. One of the things we've done in the Mission Ready package, just like we do in a lot of other things, is we kind of build a minimum standard. And part of that is the issue of cost. If a state is going to host a team, we're trying to be as cost effective as we can in the people that we send to that state. Yes, I would agree 100% that a training specialist participating on the team would be good, and it's possible that we may ask the hosting state during an EMAC deployment if we could add a position to the mission-ready package, or just an individual to accompany to the team who is a training specialist. So that's probably the best answer I can give you.
Great. What are the recommended physical requirements?
Who wants to? Go ahead.
The physical requirements are, we base it on sort of a high, medium, and low standard depending on the position and what the position does on an incident. The standards at the higher level are fairly arduous, where a person would have to be able to do some heavy lifting and walking and stuff like that, where the lowest level is pretty much an office job. All of that's defined in the guide, but ultimately, as I said earlier, the states who adopt this thing would have to review the definitions that we provide in the guide and say, okay, here's the standards that we agree to meet in order to accomplish that. So again, it comes back to the states being the managers of the program within their state.
I'd like to add to that it also depends on the type of incident the team is managing. Some will require a lot more physical exertion by their operations people and some of the other positions than would another type of incident.
Right. How do you create the first generation of qualified team members in a new program?
Okay.
Well, this is.
Go ahead, Geoff.
Yeah, this is Geoff. What a lot of agencies are doing is looking at the recognition of prior learning, or what's commonly referred to as historical recognition, and that's a process that's identified in the standard, to where a review committee can ask for or looks at documentation that's provided by an applicant that proves over the past, like in Florida, they use 10 years, going back in the last 10 years, provide documentation that you have really kind of done this work. And then there's a set of documents that you can attach as part of the application. So you have an application, then you've got the documentation that shows, and it's not only just it could be a letter from the chief, it could be a part of an incident action plan, or any host of a number of other documents that kind of prove that you were on scene, you were performing that position for a minimum amount of time. And then it includes the training and education, and even a reference letter. And so that application package, and like Bill said, it was kind of designed after the successful one in Florida. That application package then is submitted to a review committee that pretty much knows the incidents and knows who was on it, and they can look at it and vet it and make sure that, yes, that person really did do it. At the end of that historical recognition process, what is stated is that person is historically recognized as being, qualified for that position. That gives the entity or the jurisdiction kind of a jump start when it comes to looking at the position task books and needing evaluators and trained incident management personnel. So that's how most of them are doing it, as far as that recognition of prior learning, rather than, or I should say, kind of concurrently with starting the process where they actually are providing the classroom training and then issuing task books.
Hey, Geoff, I'm going to add one other piece to that, is because we've had this discussion a lot with people across the country. A lot of places that do have wildfires around their area are able to get qualified evaluators to come in and help evaluate people who are, working as a trainee on a wildfire. but the opportunity for that around the country is limited, and we know that. And so that's why in the document we worked real hard to build this qualified planned event scenario, or even a qualifying exercise that would provide some training opportunities and the ability to get tasks signed on those kinds of events. And then finally, the issue of having a qualified evaluator may or may not be in any of them in a new state that's just starting. And you know, my recommendation is that if you get to one of those places where you don't have an evaluator that's qualified, that you call some of your neighbors and see if you can import a qualified evaluator to come in and at least get you jump-started with a qualified evaluator from another state.
Great. So how are the standards actually adopted? Is it done through governor executive order, or by what mechanism?
I know in Colorado, that's the only one, and I believe this is how it was adopted in the other states. It was the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management adopted the guidelines, and the director of that division is the one who adopted it as a qualification system. I don't know what other state laws would require, other statutes from other states. But I would like to point out, you know, as it was mentioned earlier, this is a living document, and there are updates. We try to limit them to one a year, and I expect there to be updates almost annually for the next few years, and at some point they will slow down, more like your fire codes, where it's every 3 years or something. But when Colorado adopted the IIMTQS, the system, it adopted it and all future updates. That way it saves the headache of having to go back through that committee process and going up to the director. Each and every year there's an update.
Great. I think I can actually answer the next question. It's whether or not NEMA is coordinating with AHIMTA to brief on this program. And as a member of the EMAC advisory group, AHIMTA has been briefing us and keeping us up to date on the progress that they've been making on this program. And we actually asked them to present at our EMAC committee meeting at our last NEMA forum, which was last September. And one of the things that we noted was a lot of states were working on the same thing, it seemed like, and then we discovered, oh gosh, we're actually working on the same AHIMTA stuff, but nobody knew that. So we were hoping that kind of bringing this together and having one kind of central webinar and inviting everyone to come on would help to bring some cohesiveness to that process. Our next question for you guys, states often add trainees in their EMAC offers in other disciplines at their own expense to give them experience, and those don't have to be included in the missionary package. So I think it's an answer to an earlier question. The next question is FEMA considering recognition or endorsement of the system?
Does anybody want to take that one on? I will try if you don't. Okay. I don't know that FEMA can endorse it since we're a non-governmental entity. I know that it has been unofficially said that this is a Tier 1 document as far as they're concerned, which means it is of national significance. I think when we get to the point where we have 20 states, 15 to 20 states have adopted it, I think at that time FEMA will look at it and possibly save some tax dollars by putting aside what they have been working on off and on for the last 13 years and recommend states adopt it. I don't know all those in and outs of the federal process, and somebody else can probably speak to this better than me.
Well, I do know, Bill, that Doc Lumpkins and the National Integration Center, they're certainly aware of the AHIMTA and its progress and the way that this is moving forward. And there certainly has not been any consternation on their part. And so I would say that yes, there won't be an official approval or endorsement, but I think what you're seeing is by the association doing it with this national membership, with the way that the proposed standards are actually put out for public comment, the same as that they were doing. Every single comment is adjudicated, which is the same way that that we were doing it on the IMWG, and then the final recommendation is posted. That they're pleased with the progress that's being made without them having to get involved in it. So I think you'll see a rather positive review by FEMA and DHS.
Great. Have most states been successful with the historical recognition process?
Well, I think this is Geoff again. I think probably because a lot of the historical recognition portion that is in the standard has come from Florida, and I would say that Florida has had a large success, a very good success with using historical recognition. And the documents that we have in the standard, I think, reflect that success. So I believe they have at least 51 people that have been fully qualified through the historical recognition process as of about, I want to say, January or so. So I think that shows that it certainly can and does work, and there's a lot of best practices buried in what they have done in their program, and it's in our standards.
Yeah, right. Angela, I'd like to point out the term historical recognition is technically what it's doing, but it's not the old historical recognition process, which, since I'm a fire chief, I can slam fire chiefs. You know, the good old boys, oh, you've been around 25 years, you can be an incident commander. It's actually a more robust system that actually looks at the person's qualifications in detail, as opposed to the old system.
Yep, only a fire chief could say that, I think, Bill. Our next question, do we know how many states have AHIMT programs?
I do not, Geoff. I know there are a lot of states out there that have them. I think Washington has one that they've been using. Texas has a very robust program. I've heard that Missouri has a program. Other than that, I do not know of any state-specific programs out there. Anybody?
Well, it depends. It really depends if they're looking at, do you mean as a statewide, state-managed program like Indiana and the state of Florida and now the state of Louisiana are looking at, or do they just mean an actual HIMT program or an HIMT that exists within their state? Because those are kind of two different questions. There are over 100 all hazards incident management teams currently either developed or in the formative stages throughout the United States. So that would in almost in every single state. Now, how many actually have the statewide programs? That's a lot more finite of a number.
That's a good distinction. We had someone comment in that Kentucky is actually building an AHIMT program now.
Right. And Kentucky, I believe, is using the IIMTQS in developing their program.
Our next question is, what is the difference between IMT and an IMAT?
I can go ahead and take I can take that.
Okay.
An incident, very little. The term Incident Management Assistance Team actually was started by the United States Coast Guard because of the issue that they had with delegating authority from the captain of the port, or what you folks know as the Federal On-Scene Coordinator, or FOSC. Because of that, they could not delegate the authority away, so anybody that came to help them or assist them needed to not be in the command role, but more of an assistance role. And so the U.S. Coast Guard developed the Incident Management Assistance Teams. That language has continued on and is very vibrant and well understood in the All Hazards Incident Management Team community, because there is a feeling, and it's not just the home rule states, but there is a feeling in a lot of communities and with a lot of emergency managers is, you know what, there's no way in heck that this out of the area or out of region or out of state resource is going to come in and take over my incident. So it's a lot more palatable, and it's a lot easier to understand and work with if you ask for a team, knowing that that team is going to come in and assist those that are already there. So this EMAC mission ready package can come in and work with the current incident commander and whatever command and general staff they have, and actually become their deputies. And the IC of the incoming team can actually become the deputy IC, knowing that they have the in-depth credentials and qualifications to make the local folks successful. And that's a critical point that needs to be made, is when these teams come in, they work for the agency administrator. They work for whoever gives them that delegation. They don't run rogue or anything else like that. Their job is to come in and to assist the local jurisdiction, regardless of what they need, whatever's on that delegation of authority that they can come to an agreement with. So the assistance part is really a key, and I would say over half of all what we refer to as incident management teams, actually when they deploy, they go out as incident management assistance teams, there to shore up the local folks. And later on down the road, yes, they may take the off shift, or they might be used to extend the staffing and work as deputies, or some of them work night shift. But there's very little difference other than the fact that, yes, they can come in and they can actually be delegated the authority to manage the incident, but if that's politically unpalatable or just not what you want, then you delegate to them that they'll be coming in and providing assistance to the on-scene incident management folks. And then I think you're going to find the team comes together and works a little bit behind the scenes and makes your local folks successful in their endeavors.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, the terms IMT and IMAT have been used somewhat interchangeably by some incident management teams, but there are some teams, and I'm thinking specifically that FEMA has IMAT teams, and they're not really qualified or have all the positions that they would need to operate out in the field, running an incident. They are more designed to assist an EOC. So some IMAT teams may not be a fully functioning IMT, whereas an IMT pretty much can do both. And some of the IMATs, like Geoff said, are in essence an IMT. So there is some confusion in the world out there.
And I would agree, Bill, and it has to be a buyer beware, because there are then you've got the FEMA ISTs that work along the USAR task forces, which are a different kind of an element. So is the FEMA IMAT teams that work with the FCO and work back at a JFO. So you need to be, and that's one thing nice about the mission ready package, is that it states what that team will be used for, but you as a requester, as the emergency manager, you need to make it very plain exactly what is their mission, what are their objectives. And I think you'll find that when it's an HIMT or an HI assistance team, that they'll rise up to the occasion to work that for you.
Right, excellent Well, we have reached 3 o'clock, so we've been on for an hour. I want to thank all of our panelists and all the attendees for joining us today. We will be taking the recording of this webinar and putting it up on our YouTube website, so you can go capture it there if you'd like to share it out with other people who weren't able to make it today. Again, thanks to everyone for joining us, and we're going to sign off.
Thank you.